Good evening, everyone. We will begin our gathering. If everyone would like to take a seat, please. I'd like to invite everyone to take a seat so we can begin. I want to respect everybody's time this evening and give you time to get home and get your makeup and costumes ready for tomorrow evening. I would like to begin to share this evening, if you do not know already, that this morning Deacon Jim Cara died. And I was very fortunate yesterday afternoon. I was over at the house, and Jim was very alert, and we got to talk and to pray and share Eucharist with each other and to anoint him as well. So I was very fortunate to have those final moments with him and Josephine and some of their children. So we'll continue to keep Joe and the family in our prayers. We're going to meet tomorrow morning to plan the funeral. Tentatively, I believe it's going to be this Saturday afternoon at 1 o'clock, because I have another Mass at Transfiguration at 10 in the morning. So he will be laid out with Millers and Victor. So if any of you are interested, you certainly can go on their website, and we'll share what we have after I meet with Josephine tomorrow. Well, thank you for coming out. Let us begin with a prayer. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Dear Lord, thank you for instilling in our hearts and our spirits a desire to follow you and to be good stewards of the generous gifts and blessings you have given to each and every one of us. May we continue to be responsive to those treasures of yours and how we embrace them and offer our lives with time, talents, and treasures. May we rejoice in all that you provide, and may we rejoice as we continue to provide for the well-being of our ministries here at St. Catherine's and beyond these walls, for all the goodness and blessings that have been, are happening now, and will continue to unfold. Pray everything in your name as we ask eternal rest upon Jim, through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Good evening, and thank you for being here on this rainy night. Thank you for coming out, and thank you for those that are joining on the live stream as well. Appreciate your time. I'm Yvonne Wambach. I'm the current chairperson of the Parish Pastoral Council here at St. Catherine, my third year on the council. And I'd like to ask, we have a couple of our parish council members here with us tonight. If you wouldn't mind just taking a little stand and introducing yourselves as well. Okay, thank you very much. We have a good team that comes together every month here at for the Parish Council. And I would like to now just do a quick handoff to the leader of the Parish Finance Ministry, Mr. John Hurley, and he'll also be able to introduce some of those members that might be here this evening as well.
Good evening, and let me echo thanks for all of you who came out and are viewing online. If I could ask the members of the finance ministry that are here, if you could stand and introduce yourselves, please. Thank you very much. And we're doing a little tennis here, back and forth. Not pickleball, you're right.
So the parish council and the finance ministry together, we really wanted to hold this second parish town hall meeting since we had one last year or earlier in February. We just really recognize the importance of bringing people together, continuing to present information about what's going on and keep everyone informed, hear together from our staff and updates. The agenda for this evening, bada boom, boing. The agenda for the evening is that we'll have a little brief startup from John, financial updates from our staff member Dan Hofford, and then some more about strengthening the vine, and then some time for questions and answers at the end, okay? And at the end, I think we do have some microphones that Karen and Ann will be able to bring to you. I'll hand it back to John. Thanks.
Thank you, Yvonne, and thank you, Father Rob, for your prayer and for your unfortunate news about Deacon Jim. I, too, would like to thank everyone for attending tonight and joining us online. And I'd, again, like to thank Bob Goldbach and Dan and Jeff for arranging the space and the live stream, as well as other members of the staff for their significant contributions to the success of getting us all here. As I had been preparing for this meeting, the words from the first verse of the hymn, One Spirit, One Church, continued to cycle through my thoughts. The Spirit seemed to be calling me to share them as a part of my remarks. And as I reflected on the words, I think that they speak to how all of the members of our parish community responded to the news and the call to action that came from the February meeting. We are a pilgrim people. We are the Church of God, a family of believers, disciples of the Lord, united in one spirit, ignited by the fire, still burning through the ages, still present in our lives. It is good to remember that the church is not a building or a place. It is the people, a community of believers. In a few minutes, Dan will provide details of the tremendous progress we have made in addressing the critical financial situation we shared with you in February. I'd like to take a few minutes to address a couple of non-financial topics that came out of the February meeting. At that meeting, pardon me, I promised that the finance ministry, with the support of parish council and the staff, would enlist volunteers from our parish to do three things. First, we would form 2 task forces, one to develop a short-term plan to address the immediate revenue cash flow crisis we were facing. The second was to work on a long-term plan that would provide a sustainable path forward. Second, we would review our parish membership to determine those members who were truly active and those who were on the rolls but rarely, if ever, contributed time, talent, or treasure, and to be honest, rarely, if ever, attended liturgies. And third, we would contact those members, those who were once members of our parish, or current members of St. Catherine's, whose participation had decreased for whatever reason, to determine those reasons and see if there is a way to help them become more involved. Many of you who were present that night or viewed via the live stream enthusiastically volunteered to help. Well, as you know, none of those things that I just mentioned happened. And tonight, before we talk about going forward, I believe it is very important for me to acknowledge that failure and to offer an apology to each of you for that failure. I made a big deal about the fact that the issues we faced were ours to solve, not Father Rob's, not the staff. Transparency was the word of the evening. And yet for 6 months, you've not heard a thing, while much was happening behind the scenes. It is true that task forces morphed into Strengthen the Vine, and there were very good reasons why we could not move forward with plans to scrub the database and reach out to folks as we had planned. That said, there is no good reason for the complete lack of communication about what was happening. And for that, I take responsibility and again, apologize to each of you. Before turning things over to Dan, I want to remind you of 2 other things. Following the February meeting, I had conversations with several parishioners regarding the role of the parish council and the finance ministry. It became apparent to me that there was a real misconception about their roles. To clarify, the role of the staff, the parish council, and the finance ministry is to offer ideas and advice to Father Rob. But ultimately, the final decisions rest with him. Sorry to throw you under the bus, Father Rob. We are fortunate that Father Rob, like his predecessors at St. Catherine's, encourages each of us to take ownership of our parish. But in the end, decision-making in the Catholic Church is not a democracy, or rather, it's a democracy of one. Finally, as was the case in February and in all of our other communications to the parish community over the years, we will be as open and transparent as possible, but we will not be able to discuss the details of any personnel matters. I know that will make some, perhaps many, angry, but we must adhere to diocesan HR policy and, quite frankly, respect the privacy of those who we love very much. And so as Dan goes through his presentation, we ask that you hold your questions to the end so that he can share all of the details prior to focusing on your specific concerns. Thank you.
Can you guys hear me okay? All right. Thank you for your patience in getting some of these numbers. So I'm going to jump right into it. So I had to balance being transparent with just having too many numbers at a meeting like this. So what I've done is I've put almost full financial statements up. And what I mean by that is even to fit them onto these slides, I hid or condensed a couple of lines that were less than $1,000 or something like that. Full financial reports will be on the website, as will this slideshow. And then what I've done, per John's great recommendation, is a there we go. So these are the highlights from last year's financial statement. So back in, February we met, we anticipated that we could have a $60,000 deficit if things didn't change, right? So I want to point out that where we ended up is right here, an operating deficit of $1,700, which is actually really good, right? Actually, it's great, all things considered. It may lead to the question, well, how did we get so far off? And two primary reasons. People responded, and we're going to get more into that, but people responded to the strength in the vine. The one-time gifts alone were about $20,000. And that when we asked for that, that was intended to be a contribution to start replenishing savings, right? If you were to take that out of the equation, increase that number by 20,000, okay? We use cash basis accounting, which simply means, and I might have talked about this at the last time, but I'm sure some of you know this, but a real quick explanation. Cash basis simply means we book it when it comes into us and then when it goes out, our income and our expenses. As opposed to, say, let's say you're a painter, right? You do a job, a $20,000 job in October. You bill that person in October. You don't get paid until November. If you're doing accrual basis, right, you would book that income in October when the activity happened, when you actually did the work, not in November. We don't do that. We would book that income in November. So the reason I explain that is because what that means is those gifts that were intended for savings, which is intended for, was booked this year. So that's why it increased our bottom line by 20,000. The other thing that you'll see shortly is that people's regular giving also increased in that latter half of the year. And then, of course, we made some decisions that also lowered our expenses, as you guys are aware. So you'll see at the top here, our regular collections, we basically landed right on budget. But again, that includes the Strength in the Vine gifts. I also wanted to highlight this number here. This includes the Strength in the Vine increases in regular giving. This next line includes about 17 or 18,000 of the one-time gifts. Okay? We also received a very generous gift from a parishioner that was intended for the sound system. As some of you may have noticed, we've been getting lots of great feedback about the sound system here. So that was also included in that revenue. And then the other thing I just wanted to point out is the $5,000 that was raised from the raffle from Mr. Gruber was also included in revenue, as it typically would be, but I just wanted to point out because we didn't have to use it for the CMA because of the last-minute challenge that, yes, it was public, that the presenters made and a lot of people responded to. We met our goal and didn't even have to use that. So some really good things happened in the second half of the year. And then the other big, on the bottom side, on the expense side, you'll see here we ended up at $352,000. We were budgeted at $372,000. And again, that had to do some very difficult decisions. But had we not done that, we would have ended the year with a $20,000 more in the negative. I also just put this down here. The reason this is a negative is, again, because of the sound system. So if you took the gift on the top and you took the expense from the gift on the bottom, those would cancel each other out. Building maintenance was another number. Not one thing in particular, right, Bob? It was just a little bit here, a little bit there, that some things that needed to get repaired and whatnot. That's pretty typical. And then another big piece was some legal fees related to the assessment, and the Robert Half fee was the fee for the recruitment agency that brought on a staff member, myself, which I had nothing to do with that fee. I didn't know about it until I was hired, and a month later got a bill for it, and I said, "What is this?" So, and that was shared between both churches. So, all in all, we ended on a very positive note as far as the budget was concerned. So this is our balance sheet. So that last was just a picture of everything that came in and everything that went out over a 12-month period. The balance sheet is just a snapshot of what was basically what was in our bank and what did we owe, our assets and our liabilities, as of the end of the fiscal year, June 30th. And I really just want to point out a couple things here. This number right here, stable patrimony, this was really the biggest, the most significant change, and that was due to the channeling injunction, which you said at the last meeting was $220,000. We drained that account. We took an additional 20 or so thousand from the building fund. We essentially borrowed it. I will speak shortly about the fact that that's going to go back in there. And that's why our overall assets decreased by 59%. Sorry, our overall unrestricted assets decreased by 51%. Our overall assets decreased by 41%, and our net assets by 42% from one year to the next. So this slide shows you the budget that we put together for the year that we are currently in, which started July 1st. I highlighted the yellow numbers. We're going to go to the next slide and talk about those in more detail. So what I also did is I showed you the last 2 years of actual numbers. And then this third column is the budget for the current year. We anticipated regular collections of $611,500. That's a 3% increase over last year. I also want to highlight this gifts and donations actually went down, and that's just simply because we're anticipating that most of the one-time gifts from Strength in the Vine have already come in. But you'll notice our overall operating revenue, actually we're anticipating going down a little bit. And again, that's because of other things, some programs, some auxiliary receipts and whatnot. On the expense side, I want to point out that this number, the salary and benefit number, went down. There were also some increases, including healthcare, and just some other personnel changes. That was the net effect. Our insurance did go up by 22%. That's the insurance we pay to the diocese. We're self-insured, and premiums have gone up. My understanding is throughout the industry. Utilities. We were told to anticipate 20 to 35% increase in utilities. We have the diocese on every church's behalf negotiates contracts. We do save money. We save a significant amount of money compared to if we tried to negotiate on our own. That being said, the contract came to a close this past year, and even though they negotiated a better than market rate contract, it still is an increase. So that's the major reason for that increase in building maintenance. Good news, our school assessment actually went down. So we were able to balance the budget. That was back in, June. We kind of got a late start. But that was start of the fiscal year and say, okay, well, Dan, that's great, but how are we doing now? So this is the first quarter of this year. These are actual numbers for the first quarter. Again, these will all be made available to you, but I'm going to go to the next slide and just highlight a few numbers. And when we get to Q&A, if you want to go back to some of these slides, happy to do so. So the regular collections through the first quarter of the year are about $9,000 under budget. That's okay. I'm going to explain how I put everything into the budget. Yes. What did I say?
No, you said first quarter, but the first quarter is the end of September, just to give it a date.
Yes. John was just saying that, just to point out, it's the first quarter is the end of September. Today's October 30th, but these statements are always going to be about a month behind. So when I put the numbers into the budget, I pulled out Christmas and Easter. That's easy to do because we know when they are. Everything else, I took a 12-month average. We know, however, that giving usually goes up in November and December because because people are making their year-end QCDs and RMDs, required minimum distributions, and qualified charitable donations. And a lot of people are just giving once a year, and oftentimes towards the end. So we know that giving goes up. So we anticipate that by the end of December and January, this particular line will be a positive number. So we're okay with this number. Same goes for total operating revenue. And you'll see that the projected, that the under for that right now is a little bit less. But again, that's okay. And then on the expense side, we're way under right now, which is great. 140,000 versus 164. Now, same thing, some there. So I do anticipate that we'll have heavier expenses for things like snow maintenance, for example, in the winter. All that being said, through the first quarter, This is our bottom line. This was our projected bottom line. And the reason it's negative is because of those quarterly payments we make to the diocese, right? So it goes like this. It jumps up every quarter or lower. It jumps down every quarter. Then it comes back up and goes down. That's okay. So we anticipated that we would have a deficit of $8,200 through the first quarter. And in fact, we have a surplus of just over $10,000. So that's good. And again, that can all change over time, but so far so good. So strengthen the vine. How did we do with that? So what we did, and thank you to Meg Kastner for helping out with this today, last minute at around 4:30. The total contribution, so we took a 6-month window. We started this campaign in March, so we said March to August of this year, of this past year. Let's compare it to the year before and see what happens. Total contributions during that time, and this is not gifts and donations and stuff like this, is just regular offerings, correct, Meg? Increased by $56,000. From that, there were a significant number of transactions increased, right? From 2,200 to 2,600. But that almost doesn't mean a whole lot, right? What we're more interested in is the number of givers. And really, the number of givers didn't increase a whole lot, right? And what that means is, so maybe, of these 357, some may have given once, twice, monthly, weekly, whatever the case. But if you look at the average gift from these givers, it increased by 20%. Fantastic. Thank you. I think that's way better than we had even hoped for. Right? What were we asking for? 10%? And that does not even include the one-time gifts. The one-time gifts through that period were $17,000 from 25 givers, with an average of 687. Meg had already left the office, so I couldn't get the rest of this. But I could pull out of my system the total, which was $19,660 for one-time gifts. It'll be updated on the website version, yes. Thank you, Vicki. I don't know if I'm just not pressing hard enough or what. All right. So a quick update with the CMA. We're basically on pace with where we were last year. As of this morning's report, and there's a lag, so it's probably a little bit higher than this, but the report says 30 and a half, right? Last year we were at almost 30. The good news, you'll notice our goal went down by 10% from last year, by 10,000, right? My apologies. I wrapped this up at about 5 o'clock today. This is St. Catherine's number, yes. Yep. If you watched on last Wednesday, I did a save as and made edits, so that's why that's still in there. So again, thank you. And last year, we met our goal. So if we keep on pace, we'll meet our goal again. And I specifically want to thank Jen Yates, if you could just stand real quick, and Leo McLaughlin. Go ahead and stand up. Who last year helped out I believe, Rob, you asked them, or they approached, but...
Well, they ran up to me and offered.
Yeah, Rob said they just ran up to him and couldn't wait to take the reins on. So they've done a fantastic job coordinating speakers, reaching out to the diocese to get resources, analyzing data, and that all makes a difference. That all makes a big difference. So thank you, guys. And go forth for Christ, the theme of this year. So, to summarize, great response to the Strengthen the Vine campaign. Thank you, everyone. I would say the finances are stabilized. Thus far, we're under budget. We're off to a good start. We're able to put some of that money back into savings. Our checking account is sitting over $100,000 at the moment. We're going to open up a money market account, which is getting about 5% right now, and transfer some of that money in there for the time being, keep it liquid. And then when the time is right, we'll put money back into the communis funds. And now we can turn our attention to the long term, right? Because we don't want to be where we were 6 months ago, a year from now, or 2 years from now, or 5 years from now. So, as John talked about, transparency. Our not sharing things with you these last 6 months was nothing more than simply just not being able to get to it. So apologies from myself as well, and thank you for your patience. And now that we've had both of our town hall meetings, parish hall meetings, we're having this conversation tonight. Going forward, here's what you will see. In the bulletin, you may have noticed recently we began putting numbers back in. We're going to add to that the expense and the bottom line numbers. Those will be done monthly. And the reason for that is a couple things. More and more people are giving on a semi-annual or annual basis, or sometimes monthly. So when we put in weekly numbers, it doesn't give a very accurate picture. The other thing is timing and logistics. We're doing more with less staff, and for us to try to process things and then meet the deadlines for the folks to get things into the bulletin doesn't always happen. And also, I like to give, the bank statements come usually the second week of the month. And then by the time I'm able to sit down and do the bank reconciliation, it's usually second or third week of the month. So that's why you just got updated numbers for September, even though it's towards the end of October. And so then those numbers will be in there for a month, and then they'll get updated, right? And then we're also start posting financial statements on the website. So if you have any questions, you can go to the website and get the full financial statements. If you say, well, I don't use the website, call the office, leave a message, and we can have a hard copy printed out for you. So one of the big changes that's happened is a big focus on faith formation and communications, right? I'll start with communication. So I've said this to some people, apologize if I'm repeating, but if you think about everybody's jobs, staff, but even volunteer leaders, there's a distinct role. Pastor does pastoral stuff. Finance does number stuff, right? Faith formation does their stuff. Everybody does their thing, right? But nobody's ever been focused on communication. And oftentimes in most organizations, that's some of the biggest challenges you have, right? So we've created a position that is dedicated to communications. And that's, if you could stand, Vicki Waco. So she is now a shared staff member, the Director of Communications and Evangelization. And thank you for everything you're doing. There's a lot to figure out. It's a process of figuring out what is being communicated, what needs to be communicated, how is that prioritized. There's all sorts of stuff to figure out. So thank you for being patient as we work through those things, and props to Vicki for doing a fantastic job thus far. It's going to help everybody. The other big change with the faith formation, rather than having one of each at both churches, given the facts, given the circumstances, given where we're at, we're going to use our gifts and our talents and work together to grow both churches. So Karen is now a shared staff with Transfig, and Ann Gallagher is now a shared staff with St. Catherine's. Two more folks. Nancy Wall, who's from Transfig, and Jeff Beckett, who's from St. Catherine's. They are not, technically, I haven't done the paperwork yet, but they're effectively also shared staff. Jeff is in the closet back there. Hi, Jeff. But he is our streaming engineer and tech guru, and you'll notice we're doing more videos, and he's got some fantastic ideas that he's going to help us with, and he's helping up the road as well, so that our systems and our technology mirrors each other, so that when we need people to cover at one or the other, that's an easier thing. And Nancy Wall has taken over the bulletin. It was shared before. It was shared between Meg and Tiffany, our two administrators. They're answering phones. They're receiving people at the door. They're multitasking. But they have a bulletin that has deadlines. And that was a very difficult position for them to be in. Maybe back in the day it wasn't, but given all the changes, it was not the best scenario. So now we have one person who is focused on that bulletin, as well as other things. And Nancy brings a wealth of experience as well to the table. So I'm going to turn it over to Karen and Ann, and Vicki as well, if you'd like, to talk a little bit about their programs.
Okay, Dan had all the fun with numbers, but we actually have all the fun together as well. Just for instance, I mean, these numbers are actually outdated since
This morning.
this morning,
Yeah.
or even like 2 weeks ago. But our numbers really speak for ourselves, and we couldn't be happier with the amount of new families that are coming into our programs, both at Transfiguration and at St. Catherine's. I mean, you look at it right there, we have 17 new families that have joined since August at St. Catherine's, and 10 from Transfiguration. And like I said, that's already outdated. I had 3 new families come in just this weekend during religious ed classes. So we're like, yay, the more the merrier, and we love it. And it's really exciting. It has brought a challenge, actually. We have outgrown our facilities already. Last night we had
Probably 50 middle schoolers.
50 middle schoolers for middle school youth group, and we were in this like classroom which used to fit everybody, and it was great, and the kids are wonderful, and it's really fun and exciting to see the kids from both parishes interact with each other. And surprisingly, they know each other already. They just didn't know it through sporting events or school clubs or other stuff. So we are just ecstatic with what we are envisioning and what we are bringing to the table.
Yeah, I just wanted to add too that there's just
There's a lot of energy, a lot of good energy, and a lot of hope and expectation for the future, I think. We have really only heard positive things from our younger families. We haven't had a lot of pushback about the changes that have happened this year so far from the kids and the teens and their parents who are coming to us for children's family programs and teen programs. And we're attracting new people from the surrounding area. So it's just been a real joy, and it's been a joy for me to get to know all of the families here. So yeah, we just have good things to report from our neck of the woods.
And then, a part of that too is, we're welcoming all these new families in. So we're really focused on how we evangelize and how we welcome them into our two communities. So one of the things, of course, we had the huge food truck event that was in September. We have our taco event coming up that we hope is a way for them to get more integrated. And then some of they're fun projects that I'm working on right now is that we're revamping the welcome packet. We have a new welcome letter that is starting to go out to families who register and really kind of beefing up that way that we evangelize and we welcome new people in, especially because we do see so many new families coming because they're so excited about the programming we have at these two parishes and everything we're doing together.
So we're just really excited to share our gifts and our talents between the two parishes. I know right now, for me, I was doing pre-K through 12th grade last year solely here. So having a team to bounce ideas off of and to have one focus has been really great. But then also, I have been going to the high school and middle school and confirmation sessions. So if you don't know, all of our pre-K through 5th grade programming is hosted primarily down here at St. Catherine's, and 6th to 12th grade is primarily hosted up at Transfiguration, but we are doing our family and parish events back and forth. So everyone has been very comfortable getting to know each other. So thank you so much for your support and your continued support as we envision more of amazing things to happen in the future.
Yes.
Oh, that's from confirmation.
Oh yeah, those are some of
They made group photo or group names for their classrooms. Is there more, or is it slow?
I don't know.
Seriously?
There's so many pictures.
I know, it gave you so many.
That's the only one you get? Okay, I seriously gave him more photos to share, but they'll be up somewhere.
The one we should have shared was the picture of
Yeah.
the whole room. If you've ever been to the Education Center at Transfiguration, that upstairs room, when we have our confirmation nights, we have like 80 candidates, 20 older teens who are helping with the program, and a handful of adults. So that room, that space up there is just filled with young people. And yeah, we fill the whole building. So I wish I'd gotten that picture.
But it's
I
up to
didn't.
code. Like, we're totally cool
Yeah,
with.
we're good.
Don't call the fire department.
Yeah, please so.
And you guys mentioned earlier that of the contingent going to the NCYC, 10% of the, am I saying this right? Of the diocesan delegation is from our two churches. So that's great. Great.
Even 2 weeks. So send prayers.
Thank you, ladies. There we go. So what's next? Lead with intentionality, patience, to be methodical, intentional. I said intentional. And most of all, with the Holy Spirit leading us. Settle into the changes and enjoy the upcoming holiday season. And then in a new year, staff, parish, finance councils, and other volunteers and parishioners at large will discern the best ways to move forward to be a vibrant, healthy, Catholic faith community to share the love of Christ and the branches.
Nope. Since we We have about 40 people that are watching via live stream, so we just want to make sure they will not be able to hear us unless we have a microphone. So if you do have a question, just raise your hand, and Vic and I will come around. So just be patient. Do you want me?
Just as a prelude, if I could just say, the dripping you hear into buckets is Bob Goldbach's request to replenish the facilities fund so that we can fix the roof. It was very cleverly done, Bob.
It's possibly the skylight or windows, not the roof, Bob just said. So, Dave.
Yeah, my name is David Yates, and thanks for putting together this forum. Definitely appreciate the time and energy put in here. If we're going to have another town hall in the future, I'm good with numbers, but I'm not that good to be able to sit for 20 minutes and like I've got 10 or 15 questions rattling in my mind. It would be nice to have an opportunity to digest that information ahead of time and then provide, more meaningful, thoughtful responses back to the staff and back to you guys. Just a thought, if you plan to do this again, that would be appreciated.
I think that's a great suggestion, and yeah, I think going forward, I think that will be possible, absolutely.
And if you're like me and you wake up at 3 in the morning with a question, just jot it down and email it to me, and we'll get it answered.
And my hope is that, and I haven't shared this yet, even with John or Father Rob, but that we have we have an annual parish hall meeting in October, because we're supposed to share the financial statements anyways in October. It's a great forum to do that, and hopefully we don't need to have any more than that. But yeah, definitely, Deb, good suggestion.
Hi, I'm Karen Zielinski, and Dan, I just want to confirm, or have you confirm, that when you showed the shared staff that we're having now, that also means we're sharing 50-50 the salaries. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, just so that everybody's aware of that.
Yes.
And then my other thought is, I can't help but think that a budget that more accurately represents what's really happening would be extremely helpful. So you already know that in winter, utilities go higher. Right now, you're dividing by 12 and you're doing an average. And even with collections, you'll say, I know it's not an accurate number. So it's almost like for 3 quarters, you're going to be putting this information out, but you're going to be saying, but it's not really accurate. The variance isn't really accurate because we know there's going to be higher utilities in winter. We know there's going to be collections that will come at the end of, in November, December. It may be better information if, even though it's not exactly accurate, just a little bit more representative when you put the information out.
Karen, if I could respond to that. 2 things, one of which is Dan joined us in February, January? Yeah, year ago. So there's been a learning curve. Your point is well taken. Before I get into, you're absolutely right. The process of being able to take an old database and merge it into a new one and to create a model that says, to your point, here's what happens in December, January, February, which is different than July and August. Quite frankly, and I'm not making apologies for Dan, but it takes time. The goal from the finance ministry point of view is to be able to present as realistic a budget as we can. In the meantime, we need to make sure that we are being as fiduciarily responsible as we can to present the information that the system is able to give to us right now. One of the things that we talked about in February that's made a huge difference in the last 4 to 5 years is that there are a lot fewer people, wrong way to put it, there are more people who are giving annually or semi-annually than used to give weekly. That creates a real challenge to do a monthly budget. Had a conversation with a parishioner about a month ago, and they said they were getting ready to make they do their annual distribution in 2 parts. They realized that they had actually forgotten to do the first part, so they had to double up. Stuff happens. And so the goal of the finance ministry, working with Dan and the rest of the staff, is to be able to, as accurately as we can, project both revenue and expenses. Expenses being somewhat easier, actually, to project than revenue. Which is why, pardon me, Dan will say, well, we're projecting a little bit a deficit because based on historical patterns, this has happened and so on and so forth. So, yeah, please know that our goal is to continue to strive to get better at giving good information, especially, and this is really important, what we're going to be doing going forward is giving every member of the parish community the opportunity to go online at any time and see how we're doing. You can't fake that. That puts an incredible responsibility on Dan and the staff to make sure that the numbers they're reporting are as accurate as possible. And I would really ask every member of the parish to think about that. That in the past, we would occasionally talk about how we're doing, and annually we would report how we did. But going forward, you'll know within the end, yeah, come on, John. Within a few weeks of the end of the month, you'll know where we were relative to the month before. That's an incredible, powerful bit of information that any member of the parish can access and ask questions about.
I'm Karen Zielinski's husband. That's what everybody knows me as. So a couple things on this budget thing. I'm not sure. I mean, it was a suggestion. It wasn't a criticism that my wife was making there. But if you can stand there and say that, well, we know it's going to go up in this time of year and it's going to go down, and if you're going to be publishing it and you're just going to have numbers with no words, I would suggest that you'd like to have the budget mirror what's actually happening. Otherwise, what you're going to tell the parishes, we don't know how to budget.
Yeah.
That's what it's going to look like. I'm not saying you don't know how to budget, but that's what it's going to look like. That was not my question. My question is this: the one-time gifts that we got, the $17,000, they're not restricted in any way, were they? They're just for use.
So technically, they're not restricted because they're going into savings. Whatever goes back into the building fund, however, is restricted, if you will. Does that make sense?
No, when you say it goes into
so
savings.
let's call it a board restricted gifts.
So you could spend it on anything.
We want to put back what we took from the building fund because that was already restricted.
Okay, so then when we show that we broke even, if you took that out, we didn't break even. Right?
That's what I was saying. Yes, it was, if you adjusted for that. Bottom line, we broke even because of the way we do accounting.
And then we chose to take $20,000 and put it into the savings.
I haven't moved it yet. It's still sitting in our checking account.
No, I know, but you said that's. I mean, my point was, the only reason I was asking that is because if we broke even, we broke even because we brought in as much money as was needed to cover those expenses. And that's true? We did? I mean, we could use that money to cover the expenses, or do we have to put it in savings?
You're talking about
the one-time gifts. That's all I'm asking.
The in and out,
about.
We almost broke even.
But the
bottom
in,
line,
can you spend all the in on all the out, or can you not?
You're talking a financial, a profit and loss statement versus a balance sheet.
No, I'm not.
Jim, what we brought in, I showed you what came in and what went out. Let me pull it back up.
Right, but okay, let me ask you this. Let me ask it a different way.
Go ahead, I'm listening.
If you put in one column that money that you can spend on anything, and another column money that you receive that you can't spend on anything, that you have to spend on specific things, did we break even in that first column? Not that one. Yeah, that one. Nope, not that one. That's the year-to-date. Back one more. That one.
Okay.
The 1695. So what I'm asking is, in the gifts and donations, you said there's one-time gifts.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm asking, can you take that money and spend it to pay for salaries or not?
This is what happened in the past.
I know
right?
it. I know that.
Okay. So we're gonna take money. We have an excess in our checking account now. We're gonna move it to our savings.
I understand.
Maybe I'm not understanding the question.
Well, okay, so a restricted fund it's money that people give you and they say, I'm giving you this money, but you can only spend it on a specific thing. Is that what the people did, or did they just give you the money and say you can spend it on?
No, people gave a one-time gift to replenish savings.
So did they say it's to replenish savings?
That's what we asked for when they indicated with Strength in the Vine, that's what we're putting it to. So it's going to go in savings. That being said, when you need money to cover your expenses, you take it from savings. It's not restricted in the sense that we ask for money to fix a roof, and now we have to spend that money on
So
a
it's
roof.
not restricted?
In the technical sense, it is not restricted.
Okay, well, that's why I was...
That's why I've said you could call it almost like board designated. We're going to put it back into savings.
Okay.
But
Last
in the technical
question.
sense, it's not restricted.
Last question. I know you said your financial statements here are cash basis. Are the expenses cash basis? Because I saw you have accounts payable. So I'm guessing that you...
Yeah, that was from the year before. If you book an invoice on September 30th, but you don't cut the check until October 1st, it's going to show up in accounts payable.
Right. I get that, but so we're not doing cash basis on the expense side.
We are doing cash basis.
You are?
We are. But if the statement, so in that case, where is it, the balance sheet? Accounts payable.
$1,300.
So there must have been some invoices that were put into the system before June 30th, but we didn't cut the check
Right.
until July 1st.
But the other
That's why it
side of
shows
that
up.
1,300 is in expense. You recorded it as an expense.
Correct.
Okay. So that piece isn't cash basis. The reason I was asking, because if it's cash basis, you can manage your expenses to be whatever you want them to be by paying bills or not paying bills, and that's not what we did.
Okay.
That doesn't make sense?
I'm not quite following you at the moment, Jim, but
Well, okay, I'll talk to you after.
yeah, we can talk afterwards. And regarding the first point about the budget, we have a 12-month cash flow budget. I mean, everything that we have, I would say almost with certainty, we know when it's going to be, is put in there for that specific time. For the most part, pretty much everything else is a 12-month average. And yes, could we take the regular collections that we know are probably going to go up in November and December and change it? We could. It's not a bad idea, but it would take a lot of time to look at every year prior and see what the historical trends were and if they're higher or lower. You know, we could do that. But for the most part, everything else averages out over 12 months, maybe besides that and the snow maintenance that I had mentioned.
Diane Daly. The assessment that the diocese did for all the parishes for the legal issues, it's not settled, correct?
Correct, it still has not been
So
closed.
there's no reason that the diocese could not come back to the parishes for more money, correct?
That is a possibility.
Okay.
Excuse me, my name is Jim Maher. That was part of my question as well. If you put the money in the savings account and we don't make CMA, we have to fund CMA out of the savings account, correct?
I'm sorry, can you say it
You
again?
put the money in the savings account.
What money?
The money you said you transferred for checking account into savings.
Okay.
Okay, let me ask you a question. How much do we have in the savings account right now?
In the savings account, let's see, $614.
Okay, so is your intent to transfer some money into the savings account?
Yes.
Okay, so let's play next May. We don't make CMA. We have to replenish CMA out of the savings account, correct?
We have to pay the underage.
From
period.
the savings account, right?
Savings, checkings.
All right, okay.
Doesn't matter. Unrestricted assets.
Okay, so we can't protect it by protect the money. We can't protect it, correct?
For the CMA that we would put towards the CMA.
CMA, and then also to answer a question about the diocese. What's going on with the diocese?
Oh. No, I mean.
So we can't protect their money, okay.
No.
Okay. We're sort of the same place we were last year, but in a better financial situation.
Well, overall, we have
Not
less,
as far
less
as the
cash.
diocese is concerned, I'm saying. Okay. Thanks.
Hi, Dan. One more quick question. There was a slide up there that indicated it was like $700 in one column and $820 in the other column, and you had referenced the fact that the average gift amount went up somewhere in the double digit, close to 20%, yet the number of givers remained about the same. I don't know if I necessarily classify that as a success. It certainly is nice that the average per giver is going up, but we really need to take those count on the number of givers and increase that, right? We've got new families coming in.
Absolutely.
You know, how do we sort of address that? That was one of the tones that we had early on with the previous conversations that we had. So that slide here concerns me because you're asking the same people to give more, and your expectation is next year that you're going to want double-digit growth from that same set of individuals.
Not necessarily.
Thanks.
This is just responding to the campaign that we did, the Strengthen the Vine campaign. And I believe we were pretty explicit in saying that we're asking folks that are already giving to give more. Well, we also acknowledge that in the long term, there needs to be more givers. I believe we talked about that. And that's, I think, where the long-term planning and visioning comes into play, so that we're not back to this point in the future and asking the same people to just keep giving and giving. So you're right, this is not a long-term solution.
But that's pretty representative of the people who do give on a regular basis, the people that we ask to give more, right? We didn't get a whole lot of net new givers. and
From the
ongoing
strength in
givers.
this Vine campaign in this time
Right.
period, that is correct. It was primarily the majority of the people, I would say, that were already giving, just giving more.
Because that's one of the big things, and I know you guys said you were sorry and life kind of got in the way. Trust me, that's totally fine. Life gets in the way, and it's okay, and none of us are upset at that. But with regard to the number of givers and the increase on the number of givers, and how do we reach those people who aren't giving, I think that's a piece that we've missed from our prior conversation to now. And that's what's concerning to me as a parishioner, is how do we do that? And maybe that's the long term.
Can I step in? So last May of this year, Dan came to our Faith Formation parent year-end meeting and talked about the financials and what it means to give. And I know it's like a drop in the bucket, but that is one way that we were trying to reach the families that may not understand donating to a parish, but do donate to other nonprofits. And Vicki and the staff, part of the new welcoming packet, will have more information on why to give to the parish, what it means to be a parishioner. It's not just coming in for services, but how you can financially support what our mission as a parish is. So we understand that, yes, in the past it may not have been that clear cut, but we are trying in the future to have some concrete ways of expanding that, what it means to donate, because we do realize that a portion of our parishioners are the ones that are continually donating, and we want to make that part of the community of what it means to be a parishioner. So thank you for raising that. And if you have any ideas and would like to share them with us, we're ears open. Any other questions? They're not questions because of what I said.
For years, we worked on stewardship here at St. Catherine. It's about sharing your time, talent, and treasure. We have heard very little of that post-COVID. Does the parish plan on promoting stewardship again? To me, it was a real wake-up call when I was on staff here, and we did all of those stewardship planning and everything. But I would really like to see us start work on that again. When you get people involved, then they have a reason to own the parish.
Who wants to talk on that?
So, that was a perfect lead-in, Phyllis, to just one of the things we did want to kind of close out with tonight is that, we've seen all the numbers. We heard the fabulous news about new families coming in, faith formation groups growing like crazy. It's really amazing. And what the two parishes are starting to do together, and the things that we've done even the past few months socially, where people have come back together since COVID, is like, it's like the lights are really starting to come up, I think. And that's many people have raised, getting back to being, to more stewardship in the parish. And so there's one of the things I did want to talk about tonight, and that, again, I totally agree with you. You took the words out of my mouth. Like, when you get involved and you meet fellow parishioners, you maybe join a committee, or you show up and do some tasks, or it really does give you that feeling of then wanting to be a part of sharing a little bit more financially, we also have to remember that not everybody's going to be able to, so we have to remember that we are a parish and that, there will always be some that will be able to give more than others. But we also have the need and the excitement to say, time and talent. A couple of the main focuses that we will, and we've got to work back to it slowly. We also need leaders to get back to stewardship. We do need leaders for some of the individual pieces, and we need to make sure that we have at least some alignment with staff to say, okay, if we're going to start a new thing or ask a bunch of new volunteers, we have to kind of also have the leaders and the staff involvement to get some of those things going. So that's one of the things we're going to be talking about as we go, and work with parish council and making those suggestions and things. In the shortest term, some of the immediate needs are liturgical. Greeters, ushers, lectors, altar servers. We're finally getting back to having like a full church. The weekends when I come onto the masses, the church is feeling full again. It's great. And so if you want to get involved in any of those roles, you can contact the parish office and let them know what of those roles you'd like to get involved with. And either Kathy Sean or Karen Luke, they are the coordinators for some of those liturgical roles that either you or you want to get your children involved with. And the parishioners would obviously more than that are here tonight as well. And then another area that is really needing some volunteers and can use them right away is the building and grounds area. A lot of campus to take care of here. Bob Goldbach heads up that Building and Grounds Committee. You can contact Bob or, again, the parish office. Campus care, gardening, all those things that can be used. There used to be a pretty big committee that Bob had that I heard was a lot of fun, too, and they would get together and be a part of taking care of the campus. So, yeah, and of course, I get to put in a plug also for every year, we're going to have some new parish council members. So, thank you very much.
Question for Dan. Earlier you mentioned putting the numbers on the website monthly, and there was a statement made about, if you just put the numbers up there without an explanation, it'll be difficult. Is there an intent to put a narrative of any type around the numbers when you put it on the website? I think there was a statement, but there's really a question there.
Yes, similar to how we would do at a finance council meeting. We've tossed around the idea to some, short videos when an explanation needs to be given. We're in a position, there'd be explanations.
Just wait 1 second. Thank you.
Hi, maybe I missed something in the discussion. But I know there's some discussion about the savings account, but is there any thought of having a reserve budget? I mean, we know that the roof's going to have to be replaced, the carpet's going to have to be replaced, the furnace is going to have to be replaced, and things like that. But is there some sort of proposal or some sort of reserve budget that's already been developed?
So we have as of June 30th, about $160,000 in our building fund. We borrowed about $20,000 from that. The intent is to take that, put that back in there. So that should go up to about 180. That's where we start. What's that? The budget for this year, the idea was to have a balanced budget, and ideally as we go forward, to begin creating surplus budgets. And ideally we end the surplus and we're able to just take that surplus and put more into savings.
Yeah, my question though, is there some sort of documentation about what the funds in that budget is going to be used for? I mean,
You're talking about the 160,000 in the building fund?
yeah.
That's
I don't
there
know
for,
where that number
for when
comes
we
from.
need it. We'd have to.
Hold on. We can't hear you as loud as you are.
Little history on that. Back in 2011, we had a capital campaign. Anybody who was here at the time, we raised $700,000. And that was put to use right away. Carpet, painting, parking lot, all new furnaces, air conditioning units were all replaced. By the time that was all done, we had about $300,000 left. 2 years ago, we put a new roof on the community center. A lot of extra work had to be done there. That was $60,000. That came out of it. So whatever's left in there, like Dan said, will be probably $180,000. That is not earmarked for anything in particular until something major happens, but the money is there. That's our rainy day fund, strictly for any catastrophic failure we may have. It's restricted, it can't be used for anything else. So, does that answer your question?
I would also add to that I think probably sometime this year, Bob will be in a position to sit down and actually do some long-term planning, including with buildings. Okay, how old is our HVAC system? Based on the age, how much do we need to be saving for when it's anticipated life is over or whatnot?
Yeah, no, thank you for the information, but it doesn't really answer my question. My question is an actual reserve budget where you have everything that needs to be done as a capital item listed. You know what the length of that is, and you prepare to collect a certain amount of money each year so that when it comes time to repair the roof, you have money in the budget for the roof. You don't have to do a capital campaign because you've been collecting money for each of those items.
I think that would be ideal. At least from my perspective, the goal over this last 6 months to a year was just getting through the year. But certainly, as we look to the future, we can do some more long-term planning. I don't know if that satisfies your question, but that's how I'm looking at it.
I'm not trying to criticize. No,
I don't take it as a criticism. Yep.
We have a gentleman who's been waiting very patiently. Is this something that maybe can be? Okay.
Get off the subject. This is what generated the building, the capital campaign years ago. Buildings and Grounds put a whole list together over a year. That's a hot mic. Probably 5 years before we started the campaign, we started building that list and getting approximate prices. That's how we came up with the goal of what we wanted, the 700,000. So we did those things. We have not done any more to that list, and like Dan says, that's probably something now we should start looking ahead again. Yeah, HVAC was replaced, but it's going on 12 years old already. So another 5, 6 years, we're probably going to have to do some more replacement. So that's something that we probably will get going again, get a list of something together. As far as trying to build that, until the revenue comes in, we won't have the revenue to start putting aside. That's the problem we ran into back then. That's why we had to have the capital campaign.
All right. I've been trying to write down my question here for a while, but I can't exactly put words to it. I'm going to attempt to off the top of my head. So I have two questions. One being first, what exactly is it that when you guys are doing the teachings for the high school and middle school, what is it that goes on most of the time? Is it more so games and things to draw people in, or is it more so like a hard catechesis of like the faith? How much of it is like which percentage?
I was saying goodbye to someone and I missed your question. Ask it again.
How much of what goes on in the catechism,
Information class?
not even that, but just even in like the middle school classes and stuff, like how much of it is catechesis versus just games and snacks?
So no, we don't just do games and snacks, but we also don't have a classroom model. So that's actually a really great question. We do follow, there is a diocesan curriculum for middle school and for high school and for confirmation, so our programs do cover all of that stuff. We do it through active learning, faith sharing, and we have a hybrid model, so they're doing some homework at home before they come, and then when they come, we're unpacking that in active and social ways. The books, Catholic Faith Handbook and the Catholic Youth Bible. Yeah.
And then my second question is I'll make maybe a statement first, just so it kind of makes more sense. But I've been researching kind of the decline of the Catholic faith from like the 60s on till now, and I've seen a lot of the things just from like a young person's perspective of being drawn more towards like the richness of the faith and the tradition of the faith, and just maybe bringing up the fact that maybe that part of the reason there is so many financial problems is because of more so the modernism and liberalism that has infected the church. Examples being, and this is my question, like for what reason is the tabernacle not central at the altar, and the lack of the smells and bells, the things that make the Catholic faith so beautiful. So, thank you.
That would be, thank you for your question. And I think that would be something that you and we can talk about, but it would instill a long conversation. But what I do want to say with that is that we have a lot of parishes in our diocese that are more traditional, and they are still having the same effect. So it's not just our parish at St. Catherine's. Each parish has a different charisma, a different energy, a different feel, and every parish is feeling the same decline and the financial insecurity as well. But I do agree, Ann and Vicki and we have been at diocesan meetings regarding the decline, but I just want to let you know that. If anyone else does have those questions and wants that answer, as well as Nick, I'd be happy to take your email and we can have that conversation.
Travis Piper, getting back to the financial thing here, I still kind of am hearing that there's this big black cloud, 800-pound gorilla, whatever you want to call it, hanging out there that we really don't know when it's going to hit, how bad it's going to be. Is it going to totally pull the rug out from everything we've been working so hard to improve?
I'm assuming you're speaking of the bankruptcy matter.
You got it. Yep.
So in September, at a finance director forum, the CFO, Lisa Passero, said, best case scenario, we emerge December of this year. There was a couple proposals, one from the diocese, one from one of the insurance companies that were going before the judge, and that's about as much as they told us. Unfortunately, nothing's been decided, at least not that we're aware of. So, somebody specifically said, do you think we'll have to pay more? And the response was, we don't think so. But until it's decided, there is that possibility. So our checks were delivered at the end of May to the escrow account per the judge's, I don't know what you'd call that, order. And that's about as much as we know.
So
but
we're at 8:30.
We're going to proceed, right? We're going to proceed one way or another. That's how we're looking at it.
Again, we're at 8:30. Really appreciate the time that everyone has spent tonight, the thoughtful questions. You know, we're moving forward to balance our immediate needs with what we need to grow in the future. To Yvonne's point, the strengthen the vine is not about just treasure. It's much more about time and talent. That's that's the most important part of making us a parish community. And we would encourage everyone here, everyone listening online, all of your friends, you know, to be a part of rebuilding the parish. We're starting from an incredibly sound foundation. But we all know what apathy does. Apathy leads to atrophy. And we need to turn the corner and say, we're going to grow. We're going to be a vigorous people of faith. Thank you very much for being here tonight. Of course, you know our faces now. If you have any questions at any point, please ask questions. Information is incredibly important to be able to make good decisions. And to the extent that we can provide you more information, that will help you. To the extent that you can give us more information, that will really help us. Thank you.